Hey, how's it going? Today I'm talking about fueling for long, slow miles, why elite runner nutrition doesn't work for you.
This is Running to the Castle, a podcast for injury-prone Run Disney runners on a journey to running magical miles. Join me, Dr. Allie, as I share the secrets I've gathered as a runner, doctor of physical therapy, and coach. You'll learn the exact ways I get my clients to the castle strong without feeling broken or held together with KT tape as they cross the finish line.
The time of recording this, I got back from Disneyland Half Marathon Weekend yesterday. So we will get into the fueling for the long runs in just a second. Let me start off by saying congratulations to everyone who participated this weekend. I did the 5K. I had 12 clients between one-on-one clients, stronger, faster finisher clients, doing any or all of the races. I had former clients doing them. I had lots of runners following my free training plans doing them. Congratulations to everyone. I had so much fun this weekend, and spectating is a whole sport in and of itself. So anybody who is going to spectate or have family members spectate and travel from spot to spot. Now, I didn't travel from too many spots this weekend, traveled for a lot more spots marathon weekend, but that included, going down Main Street for the half marathon and going to Animal Kingdom for the full marathon. There just weren't as many places to spectate for the Disneyland Half Marathon Weekend. For the 10K, I was at the start line and the finish line. And honestly, I did not know this. I learned it, that there's actually nowhere to watch at the start line, the actual start line. If you want to see people starting the race at Disneyland, you have to go outside of the reunion area. And I had already gone through security when I realized that and walked all the way around. And I was like, no, I don't think so. So I went and sat on the bleachers. And I just watched all of the waves go. But that actually meant that I knew when the balloon lady started, I could text that to my clients. Whereas for the half marathon, I went straight. Well, I did look. I did start off by going to that section right outside the reunion area to watch some runners go through Corral A and B. I saw start the race. And then I went over to the Esplanade because that's where I was going to cheer for everybody. And then I went back to the finish line. So on that day, I couldn't see exactly with my own eyes when the balloon lady started. So I relied on the RunDiz balloon lady alerts. I looked at it on Threads. I know you can look at it on Telegram. I'm not well versed in following those alerts, so I am not the best person to ask, but I found them on Threads. So I just went in Threads, I follow them, and I just kept refreshing to see an update of when they started and when they hit each of the mile markers. So if you are looking to do that for future races, that is a great option for you. I went over to the Esplanade for the Disneyland Half, and I cheered there. So that's the spot where you cross from one park to the other. It was so much fun. I was there for probably about 2 hours. I got there just at 5:15, 5:20 maybe. And then I stayed until about 7:15. Then I headed over to the finish line, went and sat on the bleachers. And it was great. It was so much fun. If you have a family member who is spectating and going to see you at multiple places, definitely have a plan from the beginning. And I recommend not having to carry a large sign. So this time around, I did not have a sign going to Disneyland. Over marathon weekend, my client Amanda was so nice. She and her husband made me a sign, and it was the perfect size, and it had handles, and it was a good thickness. It was wonderful. I did not have that this time around, and so I went to CVS and I bought poster board and I made my own sign, but it was a standard poster board size and thickness. I had to get vinyl letters. I put some stickers on it, and it was good. People could read it, they could see it, but it was big and bulky. And it was flimsy material, so it kept getting caught in the wind, but it also kept starting to bend and fold. I couldn't hold it with just one hand, and walking with it was a little unruly because I it was just like the wrong size for me carrying around. So if you have somebody bringing you a poster, have them make a smaller sign, still with big letters, put a handle in it. God, that was the best thing. I mean, the marathon weekend sign just was the best, but top notch was the fact that it had handles. Holy cow. For future signs, I'm actually going to do what Team Kelsey's Hope does, where it's like a rolled up sign. And so then I can put it in my purse for walking around. So I'm going to figure out how to do that for future races. But if you have a loved one cheering you on and bringing a sign, make it smaller. It is tough to carry, especially if you're also carrying a coffee and managing this. And, you have your purse or a bag or whatever. It can be a lot. And it's a lot to just carry it around. And then also, if you're planning on going to the parks after, where are you putting it? If you don't need it for the next day, you just throw it out. But if you want it for the next day, you need to go back to your hotel. And that's what I had to do at the 10K. I did not think, my brain was not turned on when I thought, oh, I'm just going to go out for the rest of the day and I'm going to go to the park afterward. No, I don't want to carry around this big, bulky poster. So back to my hotel I went. And then I went on with my day to downtown Disney and then I think I started in Disneyland that day. Actually, I don't even think I made it over to DCA that day. I did park hopper each day to give myself the flexibility, but I think I just stayed at Disneyland that day. It was only 2 days ago and I already forget. That's okay. It was so much fun that I just don't remember those parts. Thank you so much to everybody who stopped by to say hi, that you follow me on Instagram, that you follow and listen to the podcast. You have no idea how good that makes me feel to hear that you are listening. Because for all I know, I am talking out into the void. I mean, I see how many downloads happen each week, which it's so cool to see that those numbers are going up every single week pretty much. That's so cool. Thank you so much for helping me achieve that. But to hear that you are listening and that you do like it, I love to hear that because it 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 reinforces that this is helping at least one person. And clearly it's helping more because more than one person came up to me and said that. So thank you. I really appreciate it. And thank you to the runners who came to the meetup on Friday. That was so much fun. We met at downtown Disney and it was an intimate group of us. So we got to sit around and chat. And it was so much fun. Thank you. I will continue to do these meetups at the weekends that I go and either run or go to spectate only. I will make sure that I continue doing it because that was a lot of fun. Okay, let's get into the topic of the day, which is fueling for the long runs and why you can't follow the elite runner plan for fueling. I am going to talk a little bit about just nutrition in general. This topic has come up a lot in the past couple of weeks. It was very obvious that it is a question that's at top of mind for runners. It was very obvious this weekend that needs to be talked about. So let's talk about in relation to just general nutrition first, because I think I can talk about that faster than the other grouping. So recently, you may or may not have known that the My Plate nutrition advice has recently changed. They have gone back to a pyramid, and registered dietitians and nutritionists have thoughts and opinions about them. I'm honestly trying to stay away from just the whole topic, seeing it online, because I personally and professionally believe that we should have stuck with the My Plate aspect and not gone back to this pyramid. And I think the My Plate is a very good visual representation, and whether the actual amounts that were on the plate is what we should have stuck with, that I'm not going to discuss. but I am going to discuss just nutrition in general and the recommendations for the general population. So that's what those things are. The food pyramid, the My Plate, whatever those recommendations are, that's for the general public. That is not for people who are going out and training for 10K, half marathon, full marathon, challenge race weekends where you're doing 3 races in a row or 4 races in a row or 2 races in a row. That general recommendation is not for you, especially on long run day and especially on race week. So for most adults, you're looking to hit major macro. So I'll talk about that a little bit more. Like I said, I don't want to go into the nitty gritty of the My Plate versus the food pyramid or anything like that. But just as a broad overview, we're looking at hitting macronutrients. So those are, macro means big. So those are the big nutrients. So I'm not going to talk about micronutrients, which include the vitamins, the minerals. So like the potassium, the sodium, those kinds of things. I'm going to talk macronutrients, fats, carbohydrates, and protein. For the general population, you will hear that you need more protein than fats and sometimes more protein than carbohydrates, depending on what your goals are. But in general, typically you want 40% carbs, 30% proteins and 30% fats, maybe even 50% carbs, 30% proteins and 20% fats. And sometimes, like I said, sometimes you want more protein than carbohydrates. That tends to be what things like Atkins diet kind of recommendation is. It's a very popular way to lose fat. And if you're also working out, gain muscle. And so we hear a lot that we need more protein, get all the protein, get all of the protein. I am here to tell you that advice does not always apply to you. And actually, it gave me the thought, I am going to do a series on Instagram about fueling and hydration, I guess is it's kind of like how I'm going to eat and drink over the next couple of months and how it's going to change. And it's going to change as I'm doing longer long runs, and it's going to change as I'm getting closer and closer to race week. So, like I said, typically you'll hear get all of the protein. Protein is very important. Please don't get me wrong when I say like you don't need protein. You do need protein, but differently than the general population recommendations. So protein helps build cellular structure and muscle. Think protein builds. Okay, so when we're talking protein, things that go along with protein are amino acids, collagen peptides, things like that. And so they build, and they can build the cellular structure to give your skin support, as an example. It can also build cellular structure to build muscle if you're also strength training. Those things are important, but when it comes to runners, we need more carbohydrates than we need protein when we're looking at our training schedule. So for long runs, as an example, so this has come up with either my clients or questions in email, questions in DMs, questions at the race, where somebody will say, I'll ask, because this is something that happens all the time in Stronger, Faster, Finisher. We talk a lot about fueling, and I'm going to talk a lot more about fueling and hydration just to reiterate it and make sure it doesn't fall too far back in the brain, that it's at the forefront. But I will say, okay, what did you fuel with before your run? What did you fuel with during your run? And what did you fuel with after your run? And the answers are all over the place, which is fine. I am not going to tell somebody you need to eat X type of food this is the standard protocol food that you should eat that I recommend. I don't do that. I take foods that my clients like and I analyze it. And I have them look at how much protein, how much carbs, and how much fat is in it. So then I can determine, is this a high protein thing? Is it a high carb thing? Is it a high fat thing? Because when we're talking high protein, high carb, high fat, yes, we can talk about it in relation to how many calories are in the thing, but we can also compare it one to the other. So, how many calories, and it comes down to like how many calories. So you can do the math to figure out, well, is this primarily used as a protein source? Is this primarily used as a carb source? Is it primarily used as a fat source? And, one of the best ones that somebody can tell me is that they'll use peanut butter as a protein source. Okay, let's look at that and let's look at how much protein compared to fat is in it. Typically, peanut butter is a good fat source. It's a good protein and a good fat source, but I lean more to thinking of that as a fat because of how much fat it has compared to how much protein it has, as opposed to, let's say ground beef, because this is typically one that you will see like 90% lean versus 95% lean. We're talking about lean as in how much fat is in there. So 95% lean, we have like 5% fat in there versus 90% lean, we have like 10% fat in there. That source, if you choose the 95% over the 90%, then the 95% has less fat in it. That's what we're looking at. And then comparing peanut butter, yes, it has protein, yes, it has fat, but when we think about how many calories come from each gram of fat and come from each gram of protein, that's more of a fat source, as an example. But even aside from that, when we're looking at what we're fueling with before and during a run, we want a high carb source. So going back to people saying, oh, well, you need a high protein diet, you need a high protein breakfast, right? This is something that we hear a lot. High protein breakfast keeps you fuller for the rest of the day. Well, if you're eating breakfast an hour and a half before your run, because a good window to have a big meal is between 1 to 2 hours. And if you have a sensitive stomach, closer to 2 hours before that long run, we don't want a high protein diet. We don't want a high protein breakfast. Protein takes longer to digest and it will sit in your stomach. So if you've ever thought, oh, well, I did a 2 or a 3, let's say a 3-egg omelet, 2 full eggs, 1 egg white, or all egg whites to lower the fat, 3 egg white omelet with 2 chicken sausage links and my black coffee for breakfast for my long run. And then you tell me I really can't eat before my long run because my stomach is so upset. And you tell me that's the breakfast you have, I will say it's not your stomach, or it may not be your stomach. It may not be your stomach. It does take some figuring out if it is or is not. It's probably the food you ate, because that egg white omelet, it's keeping you fuller all day because it's still in your stomach and slowly digesting over a course of hours. As opposed to 2 pieces of toast with some peanut butter, that's digesting in your stomach in 90 minutes or 2 hours. Don't quote me on those time frames, because that part I don't remember from my nutrition coaching training and my nutrition training from physical therapy school, which physical therapy school, not a ton of nutrition training. Our nutrition training was very much for wound healing and like cellular activity building. We did talk a lot about protein intake for healing tissues, wound, and things like that. But I also, when I took my personal training certification, I also took a nutrition certification, and there was information in there. But again, please, I am not a registered dietitian. I don't claim to be. You need to follow up with somebody for your exact things that you should be eating. I take the information of what people already like to eat and I help figure out when you should eat what. Okay? I don't do the whole, this is how many macros, carbs, fats, proteins you should have. This is your calorie goal. I don't do that stuff. But if you have a 2,000 calorie goal and you want to hit 40% carbs and 30% protein and 30% fat or whatever orientation of those numbers you want, and then you tell me the foods you eat, I'll help guide you along that way. Okay? So, but I have a lot of that where somebody will say, well, I just have a super sensitive stomach. I can't eat before I go for a long run. I have to run fasted. My first thing will be, what do you eat? And then you tell me it's a 3 egg white omelet, 2 chicken sausage links, and black coffee. And I was like, okay, let's flip that. Let's see if we can get something else, because protein keeps you full for so long because it's so slow to digest. It is one of the last sources your body uses for energy. It goes to carbs first, and they quickly digest, which is why if you have an only carb diet regularly, right? If we're comparing carbs to protein, if you had just a carb diet versus only protein diet, I know this is like a weird world that we're living in, that these are the recommendations. I'm using this just as an example. But if you only ate carbs ever, you'd be hungry all of the time. You'd be much fuller, much more satiated if you ate protein. It would keep you fuller longer because it's taking so long to digest. That's why we want carbs before a run. And it's also why we want carbs during a run, because we need that quick uptake. So before a run, like an hour, maybe 2 hours, you could have more food. So 2 pieces of toast, a glass of orange juice, and some peanut butter on that toast, or whatever you like. Bagel with cream cheese, if you like cream cheese. Yes, it has some fat, and yes, it has some protein, but that 55 gram of carb bagel has way more carbs than it does protein or fat. So yes, you will have some stuff sitting in your stomach, and you might find, nope, can't do peanut butter. Nope, can't do what did I say? How did I just lose the word? Cream cheese, right? You will have some of that on there. Maybe you decide that you can't tolerate that. Well, maybe you go for toast with jam. That's going to be mostly carbs because fruit and vegetables are carbs. Maybe it's toast with honey. Honey is carbs. And then on the run, you also want quick uptake carbs. So that's why gels and goos are so popular, because they're practically pure carb. There should be very little protein in there, if any. They're chemically made. They should be making it just for the carb intake. And they're so popular because they usually have a big bang for their buck in a small amount. So you can carry a lot and get your carb source. I personally don't like gels and goos. I don't like the texture. I don't really like the taste. It's more of a texture thing for me. I go for Nerds gummy clusters. Swedish Fish sometimes, but they tend to get too soft for my liking. And then I drink a lot of my carbs. So Gatorade is a go-to. Scratch, Liquid IV. Those are my favorites. And then on a really, really long run, I might even get a Coke. Make it go a little flat and drink it during my walking portion of my run. And I don't even care if it gets all fizzy in the bottle when I'm jostling around, because I don't want the carbs. The carbs will make me all burpy. I don't need that sitting in my stomach. So I'll just make it go flat. Or I'll have a soda before I go out for my run. Carbs. Lots and lots of carbs. But then after the long run, that's when you can add in your protein. 30 grams within 30 minutes. So 30 within 30. 30 grams of protein within 30 minutes. A great way to get that is a protein shake, because you can buy a protein shake that has 30 grams of carbs and just drink that while you're stretching. That's what I do. That's what I recommend. But if you don't like protein shakes, or they're not in your budget or something like that, you can have another protein source. You can go and have a turkey sandwich while you're stretching. You'll just have to eat a lot of turkey because I think so I just looked at it today when I made my lunch. 2 ounces of turkey, which was about 3.5 slices of thinly sliced turkey, was 9 grams of protein. So in order to get 30, I would need a little bit more than triple that. So let's call it 4 slices. I would need a 3 I would need 12 pieces of turkey. And I could just eat the 12 pieces of turkey. It doesn't need to be a sandwich. Just gobble it up. That's fine. But that's when you want your protein. You want your protein afterward because your muscles will naturally have some breakdown. That's just a natural process as you're putting load, meaning as you're working those muscles, they do break down a little bit, but they break down and then repair. It's part of just the whole life cycle of muscle cells. But you have it then, so then your body has those amino acids, those peptides ready to go to put right into the muscle. But if you ate it before, it's going to sit in your stomach. Eat it afterward, and then it doesn't matter if it sits in your stomach. You'll be fuller longer, like we've established, and it won't be sitting in your stomach for that 10-mile long run. So the order of operations is important. And so it's a lot of unlearning, especially from, the 90s and early 2000s when we just needed to be thin, thin, thin. And it was Atkins diet this and Jenny Craig that. And just figuring out now of what to actually eat as opposed to thinking low sugar, low carb, low fat, high protein, high protein, high protein. Protein has a place for us. It's just that place is after a run or on our rest days, not before or during a workout. Okay, so that's general nutrition. We typically want more carbs, less protein, or at least protein after the run. I'm going to continue talking about fueling and carbs and protein and things like that. So ask me your questions and I will answer it, talking about it on the podcast. Okay. Now let's go into fueling for your long run. You can't fuel like those elite runners. So if you are new here, welcome. Running is not my entire personality. Of course, it may seem like it when you're following me on Instagram and all I'm posting is Run Disney stuff, or you're following this podcast and all I talk about is Run Disney stuff. It's running, running, running. Running is like the smallest part of my personality. I don't follow many running accounts. I barely care about running in the Olympics. I barely care about races like marathon, Boston Marathon, Berlin, like the 6 stars or the 7 stars now. Barely care about that. But I do know a lot of new runners follow those accounts for inspiration and for what to do. And I welcome you to be mindful of what you're watching because that won't be what you should do. Those people are elite runners. For some of them, it is their literal job. They get paid to do this. Like winners of those races, they get a hefty check, right? So they have a lot of skin in the game and they may have sponsors and they are professionals. Or even if they're not the actual professionals getting paid, they're amateur, but they are up there, contenders for winning Boston Marathon, Berlin, London, things like that. Those recommendations for fueling, aside from the type of fuel, is not for you. So the amount of fueling that they're doing, definitely not for you. Because for the long run and race day, it's all about how long you're going to be out there, not how many miles you're running. That does not matter. It's over the course of how long you will be running those or walking those miles. So if you think, oh, I am slow, I don't need to be fueling all that much because I'm not fast. It's the opposite. You need to fuel more because you're slow, okay? I will repeat that. If you're saying, I don't need to fuel that much because I'm slow, you actually need to fuel more because you're slow. Because it's all about how much time you are out there doing the activity, whether you're running or you're walking or a combination of the two. You need more fuel because you are out there for longer hours. So when we're calculating how many carbs we need on a long run or on a race, it's how many hours am I going to be out there? And that's how many carbs, and that determines how many carbs you should have. So in very basic terms, 60 grams of carbs per 60 minutes. 1 gram of carb per minute. So a 2-hour half marathon is 120 grams of carbs. 180-minute half marathon is 3 hours. So now we're getting more into the time frame that most of us listening to this podcast are in, 3 to 4 hour. So we're talking 180 minutes. That's 180 grams of carbs. 3.5 hours is 210 minutes. That's 210 grams of carbs. Okay. 4-hour half marathon is going to be 240 minutes, 240 grams of carbs, right? 6-hour marathon, 360 minutes, 360 grams of carbs. So when you see these runners posting that they're taking 1 gel and 1 water bottle for their half marathon, it's not because that's all you need to fuel. It's because their half marathon is going to take them an hour and a half. So they only need 90 grams of carbs. And technically, that's after the first hour they're out there. Now, I just give you the minutes, and I recommend hitting those numbers. I find that is way easier to do than figuring out and manipulating the math and the numbers. And I'd rather you overshoot it because you're out there for so long. But when we're thinking if it's taking 90 minutes for them to run a marathon, not a marathon, a half marathon, I mean, they are going with they only need 30 grams of carbs. You need more than that. So seeing these fast elite runners taking 1 gel and 1 electrolyte bottle drink, that's not for you. You can use that same gel and you can use that same electrolyte drink, more of it, for the longer race that you're running or the longer long run that you're running. So when you see those numbers, don't think, oh my God, I'm carrying way too much. This is so silly. They only take 1 gel. I only need 1 gel. No, you don't. You're taking double or triple the time that it's going to take them on the race. It is going to take you way longer. You need double, triple, quadruple what they're taking. And then when we're thinking about fueling for the long run, that also includes what you ate before, just before the race, before the long run, and the days before. If you're doing a dopey simulation that includes a 20-mile run and a 10-mile run and a 5-mile run and a 2.5-mile walk or a 45-minute walk, you best be fueling up a couple of days in advance. That's a lot of carbs that you need for all of those because you know my 20-miler should take you as long as you think your marathon's going to take you. So it's probably going to take you 7 hours. That is a great time to practice carb loading. Practice what you're going to eat ahead of time. And I've talked to some clients who have had clients or just people following along who have a hard time, with nerves and being nauseous and not being able to eat the day before. Drink your carbs. Do you like juice? Do you like soda? Do you like Scratch? If you like Scratch and you like their 100 carb flavors, I think it's raspberry and then maybe lemon lime as the other one. Don't quote me on those. But they have 2 flavors for the 100 gram Scratch. It's 100 grams of carbs in a serving of that Scratch. And this is the liquid hydration, the powder. You can drink that and sip on that throughout the day to start hitting your carb load goal. And it's 8 to 12 grams of carbs per kilogram body weight that you weigh. So I've done this math before. If you weigh 200 pounds, you weigh about 90 kilograms. Split the difference, 8 to 12 grams of carbs, try and hit 10. So you can just add a 0 to whatever that number of kilograms. So 90 kilograms at a 0, 100 grams of carbs is what you want to try and hit per day when you're carb loading. That's a lot of carbs. If you're using your 100 gram Scratch, well, that's 9 drinks. Sip on it. all day long. Or if you like soda, sip on that. Just be mindful, don't have caffeine in the afternoon or at night because it will disrupt your sleep pattern. I had this conversation with a client over the weekend and she was like, I don't know what was so different. I could not sleep. And then the next day she goes, oh, well, I had a sweet tea at dinner. And she goes, that was it. I go, yeah. Because it was just trying to get those carbs in. And I appreciated trying to get those carbs in. Sometimes we forget about the things that have caffeine. So orange soda, mug root beer, Sprite, those kinds of things don't have caffeine. My favorite at Disney, the strawberry lemonade that you can get as a fountain beverage from any of the restaurants that have the lemonade as an option with the fountain beverage. It's Minute Maid strawberry lemonade because that's a Coke product, and they have Coke products at most, if not all, of the Disney restaurants. That is a great one. It's delicious, no caffeine, so you can do that. But when you're fueling for these long runs, please, please, please do not look at what these other elite runners are using in terms of how much they're using. Look at it for the product to get an idea of what you could use, get suggestions. But however much they're using does not match how much you're using. You need 60 grams of carb for every hour you're out there beyond the first hour. Easiest way to do it is however many minutes it's going to take you to do that long run or the race. That's how many grams of carbs you need to use. Reach for the moon, land amongst the stars. Try your darndest to hit that number. The fact that you're going to be conscientious about it, thinking about it, actively thinking about it, means you're going to hit it closer than had you not been thinking about it. But that's the number you need to aim for, okay? Take this information as you will, and let me know what other questions you have about fueling and hydration, as I'm going to be talking about this a lot.
Please take what you've learned in this episode and use it to adjust your strategy for your Run Disney race training. It's not about doing more. It's about doing the right things in the right balance so you can finish strong, not broken. And if you want personalized guidance specific to your race, your injury history, your running background, and your goals, that's exactly what we do inside Stronger, Faster, Finisher. You'll get step-by-step instructions and a proven system to help you train smarter from start to finish. Join the waitlist today to be the first to know when it opens next. That's all for now. Talk to you soon.